Yes. Hi, Shirin. I think we are live now on Facebook. So, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on board to do this talk. Uh, it's been something on my mind for quite some time that we need to do a little more awareness about this wonderful topic about animal assisted therapy. I can't think of anyone better than you to come on board and talk about it. And I'm really honored that you're here today. Um, I just want to start a little bit. Of course, nobody needs an introduction to you. Everyone knows you in the canine world. But if you could just take us through a little bit through your journey, how it all started. You started more than 2 decades ago. So just give us a little brief about it.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. I did start about 2 decades ago. And yeah, I think it was 1995 when I started working in the world of dogs. And so I studied in England and I came back to India and I started all kinds of different work around dogs.
Right. So, Shirin, you've done different things in the canine world. You've lot of different types of training, and you've done a lot of groundwork. You've really got your hands dirty in the therapy world when it comes to the canine world. So when I say hands dirty, I mean you've really got down and done a lot of groundwork in this field. So if you could tell us a little bit about what set the spark for you, how did it all start in the therapy aspect, in the animal assisted therapy aspect?
So I think my first therapy dog session happened in 1996 itself. So there was a vet in Bombay, her name's Dr. Sangeeta, and she said, listen, why don't we go with the dogs and visit a little home here that's just around the corner from her clinic and see if we can, interact with the people there, the people who could benefit from it. And that's where we kind of, I think, first did it in a small way. I used to do a lot of assistance dog training. And we used to do a lot of demos in public. And I remember one of them was for the soldiers who had been injured in the Kargil war. And it was in Khadki in Pune. So we actually went there to do an assist dog demo. And it ended up being a kind of a therapy dog session at the same time because the soldiers, benefited from the interactions. And that's where it really picked up pace for us. And from since 1995, 96, we've been doing work across the country as such, with therapy dogs.
Well, that's wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit about the different kinds of work that you have done, apart from the, the work that you've done with the defense, with the army? What other kind of work have you done in this field?
So there's been lots. There was a center in Bandra, which was the school for the spastic kids.
Yes.
I think it's no longer there now; it's been shifted. And so we did a lot of therapy sessions for those kids there. And after that, we had one teacher approach us. She was doing a PhD, and she wanted to do it on the benefits of a therapy dog. So what we actually did there is she chose about 8 to 10 kids from different fields of issues that they had, and twice a week I used to go to that school and we used to work with those kids, and we did proper animal assisted therapy sessions where we measured certain issues, maybe fine motor skills in a child, and then we measured those again after a period of 3-4 months. So she did a whole PhD on that. So we had those sessions. We've done lots of animal-assisted activity sessions, schools, old age homes, people recuperating. There's a school in Bombay and Worli called the School for the Blind. We visited.
Yes.
I mean, over the years, I can't even remember the number of things that we've done.
Yes. I remember the examples that you shared with us during our therapy course, and it's just mind-blowing the kind of work that you have done. So the whole purpose of having this talk today is to just spread a little awareness about the magic that animal assisted therapy can have. So just a little bit about ourselves. This is a very personal and it's a very personal topic for me because we as a family have benefited so much from having a therapy dog at home. And so I do get some calls from parents, who have children with some special needs or differing needs, and they're always looking for. Um, we're always trying new things. We want that little. We want to go that extra mile always for our children, and so they do come forward and ask about animal assisted therapy. They sometimes want to just get a dog home. They don't know where to start. So um, I think in India, of course, there's a lot of work being done, but also as a special needs parent who's probably a first time pet parent, we just need a stepping board. Like, where do we start? So if a family was looking for animal assisted therapy, where can they start? What would be the right way to go about it? Would you be able to throw some light on that?
So are you talking about them bringing home a dog of their own to do therapy as such, or is it just a dog visiting them for therapy?
Yeah, a bit of both, maybe. So what we did is we first availed of the animal assisted therapy session just to
Yeah,
see how our daughter will benefit. At that point, we had no thoughts of getting a pet home. But when we saw their interaction unfold, we realized that she's just blossoming in the presence of an animal, and then we were guided to then go ahead and get a pet home. Um, so just maybe starting with sessions and then
yeah.
how do we go from there? Yeah.
So that is the best route. The one you took was the best road, as such as I would say. First, try it out. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people nowadays who want a dog, maybe for their child. Maybe their child is a single child. Sometimes, so they want a companion.
Yes.
Sometimes they notice that their child maybe has certain needs that are not being met by its lifestyle currently or whatever. Especially right now with this whole pandemic happening and children locked up
Yes.
in their homes, a lot of parents of single kids are wanting to bring home a dog to give the child company. But
Yes.
here's the thing, you can't just go get a dog and, cross your fingers and, oh, it's going to work out. It's going to be a
Absolutely.
thought out process for everybody involved. I've seen so many situations where it's gone horribly wrong, and then it's the dog that pays the price. So it's not fair. Child also then ends up, wondering what happened to the dog and things. So my first step to anybody who wants to do this would be do a couple of sessions with a qualified therapy dog. So it's got to be a dog that's qualified. At the most, if you don't know of one or you live in a city where there isn't one, you can talk to somebody who's a pet parent with a very friendly, well behaved dog. So, a
Yes.
couple of criteria: that should be very friendly dog, good in temperament, and the dog should enjoy doing this. And the dog, obviously, if it's going to meet with kids, should be okay around kids. It can't be where they say, "Oh, we've not exposed the dog to kids, so we don't know what it is." So it can't be that. Do a couple of sessions, and the sessions can start with small, maybe 15-minute, 20-minute interaction, so nobody is overwhelmed. And as they progress, it can become longer. Maybe then it can be a couple of hours that the dog stays in the house so that the people in the house know what it's all about to have a dog at home. And we always want them to see the other side of dogs. We only
Mhm.
see the cuddly side and the good side. But dogs, very much like children, we can
Yes.
be sick, can be naughty, can be destructive. So everything has to be seen. So, and we then want to see the age of the kids, how much can they be involved. So we know with different age groups of kids, there can be different levels of involvement. So you can't
Mhm.
expect maybe a 3, 4-year-old child to do anything for the dog. Maybe
Mhm.
at about 8 to 10 years, they can be a little involved, little higher, a lot more.
Yeah.
So all that is to be seen. And I think the number one thing that we have to see when people, who want to bring home a dog for their child, need to see is that the whole burden falls on the caregiver.
Mhm.
And you would know that because you've now got a child that needs you, and it
Yeah.
it really needs you a lot more than usual, maybe. And now you've added a dog to that. That's like a second child. If anybody has a dog here, it's like a second child. I've often seen then when it's typically in our country, I would say it's the mom who has to do everything. And it then adds to your list of issues, your problems. So you've got to, I think about that. Don't just see the side where the child will benefit from it, but see the fact that the mother will have to spend an extra hour or two every day taking care of a second living creature at home. So I think that is something we overlook, because then I see sometimes the mothers are completely burnt out trying to balance a puppy. Maybe a puppy is going to be so much, care and instruction and toilet training. And I've seen the mothers completely burn out with that. So it's something that needs to be thought of. You can't just bring a puppy home and then say after 2-3 months it didn't work out for me and now puppy's looking for a new home.
Yes, I got that. Yes, and when we talk about getting a puppy home, it's a lot of work because they're naughty, and then you have to keep an eye on them. And if you have a child with special needs, like my daughter has motor coordination issues, she can have a fall, she can trip over them. So we can't take our eyes off them. We have to be watchful all the time. So it is a lot of responsibility, especially when they're puppies. Now, when they're a little older and they're trained, they're a little more well behaved. So it's easier to manage. But yes,
but it's like a year's journey, right? If not more.
Yes,
so
yes.
that's a lot. Yeah, for a mother who's taking care of a special needs child and to have a dog at home, I really think it's commendable how some of the mothers put it off.
Yeah, it is. But I think in our case, what worked was both my husband and I are quite big animal lovers, we're big dog lovers. So it fell in place. He helps me out, and so we manage it. What about in a case where maybe someone wants to bring a dog home and there's only some part of the family who is okay with it, and some part is not, or there are aged parents at home. I mean, there are a lot of things to consider before you get a pet home.
Absolutely, yeah. So you do need to have everybody involved.
Yeah, that's very important. Everyone has to be on board with the idea. Absolutely, yeah. So, in case a family does decide to, maybe after a few sessions, that okay, this is something we would like to go ahead with, what do you think would be the prerequisites that a family would need in terms of also them preparing for it, and as well as having the home set up for it, or maybe what do you think would be the prerequisites?
So I think the prerequisites would be very similar to anybody bringing home a dog. First step is to see, are you ready to keep a dog at home? Dogs need your time, they need your energy, they need your dedication. You need to train the dog. You need to do a lot of that time and effort to stop any behavior issues as a puppy, let's say toilet training, destruction. So that time and effort has to be there. If you don't have that, then maybe think twice, regardless of whether you're bringing it home for a special needs child or you're just getting a pet for the general feel-good factor of having a pet. So that is the first thing. Secondly, see the family at home. If people at home are scared of a big dog, especially the child, then maybe a small dog might be better. But in saying that, I'm also going to specify that see what the problems the child has. So, and when I say child, then a lot of people consider a 21-year-old man a child in their home, And I've had a mother once, she said, I've got a child, my son this, son that, and I kept thinking, you know what? And the kid had schizophrenia. So, there was a lot of other issues. And it was much later that she mentioned the age is 21. And I said, hang on, that's not a child anymore. And one of the issues that they faced was because of his condition, sometimes he was a little volatile maybe, and he couldn't obviously help it because of the condition. But at that time, he was a little forceful in his touch with the dog. A small dog at that point may not be able to take that kind of touch. So I would suggest they talk to somebody, whoever wants to get a dog can talk to someone like you, because you come with a doggy background. plus an idea of understanding children that have, certain needs that need to be met. Because if it's a certain touch that the dog needs to be able to accept, maybe a
Mm.
small breed of dog won't do that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but then again, a large dog like a golden retriever or a lab, which are most popular because of their good temperament, again, might be more time, more effort. And again, the worst part of these breeds is their tail. Because if you have a young child under 5 years, the tail is going to knock them over all the time. And where's the
Yes.
child?
Yes.
He's fallen.
Yeah,
It's
all
not,
the time.
I mean, it's a small thing, we can laugh about it. But sometimes big dogs can be scary for small children, overwhelming, whereas a small dog might be better. So what I might say is when you're doing the practice therapy sessions with somebody else's dog, bring over dogs of different sizes. Maybe try something small like a Shih Tzu, then try a Labrador. See what works best for your family. And then maybe then the family takes a united decision. And maybe somebody from the dog field who's an expert at pre-puppy consults can further guide you along the way.
Yeah. So when we're talking about, okay, so these would be the before getting the pet home. So you're saying definitely check out the size of the breed, the type of breed, and also get the counseling in place, the counseling in place. Once you decide, then do you think there's any specific in your experience? A lot of people ask this question, so I want to just put it out there. Is there a specific breed, so to speak, which is more suitable for therapy work?
So I'll tell you this, no. A lot of people tell me this, and a lot of people say, oh, Labrador, Golden Retriever. I'll show you tons of Labs and Goldies that don't enjoy the work either.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you're getting a dog specifically maybe for this kind of work, you've got to choose a dog of good temperament. And temperament, in my opinion, is not specifically related to breed. I have done therapy work with Rottweilers. We've done it with Indie dogs. And of course, we've done it with Cocker Spaniels and Labradors and Goldies and Weimaranas, Beagles. And I don't think it really has to do with the breed as much as it's got to do with the dog's natural. So one, I'd say, is a little bit of a natural predisposition to wanting to do this work. So the dog needs to enjoy it, thoroughly go out of its way to want to do it. And secondly, the temperament. So this is what I tell people. You bring your dog home based on temperament, nothing else. So choose the puppy base. So what you need to maybe see is the temperament of the parents. Right. So make sure the mother and father have good temperament, because you don't want to find out at 8 months that genetically your puppy's inherited a nasty temper, because then that's a lot of work for you to do, and that's too much. The special needs child, then to constantly keep an eye, because the dog could be snappy or possessive. We don't really need that added on work in such a home. So what I would suggest is just pick the right dog. Breed is not something I would look for. The only aspect of breed I'd look at is knowing roughly so say if you choose, say, a Beagle, I would roughly have an idea how big it's going to grow, roughly have an idea based on its breed, what its temperament could be, and what its disposition could be. So I would know what I'm working with. With sometimes a mixed breed dog, you may not know how tall it might grow, how big it might grow, or what its temperament could be, unless you know where it really came from. So while I'm all in favor of any breed as such doing this work, we choose one based on temperament. So knowing a little bit about its parentage or its breed helps us maybe get a general idea of that.
Right. So I think we were guided in that path. We were told don't get an indie because they can be quite temperamental or unpredictable, because the race is so mixed.
Sometimes it can be, because so much of mixed breed into it, you cannot predict necessarily whether that dog might enjoy doing that work. Which is why even in the world of assist dogs, guide dogs, a lot of mixed breed dogs, unless we know the parentage as such, may not be used, because you don't want to get to 7-8 months to find out that the dog is not enjoying what he's brought home for. Then everybody kind of is unhappy.
Right. So I think Shalaka has asked a similar question. Do you think an indie who has been hand reared from a very early age can be trained to be a therapy dog? So I think
Totally
that,
can.
yeah.
Yeah. But you know what, Shalaka, I really see it doesn't matter whether dogs are hand reared, and it doesn't have to be indie, it can be any breed of dog. I see that they either have the predisposition to doing this or they don't. You can create that. That involves a lot of socialization, a lot of bit of training to ensure that you actually create the fact that when the dog is doing this, there is joy involved. So for that, really, I would say somebody who knows what they're doing, and of course, with your level of experience, Shalaka, you can definitely do that. Knowing you, you've obviously got that sorted. But just a regular pet parent, maybe a first timer, may not know how to do that. So they need somebody with that level of expertise.
Hmm. That's really important. I think the temperament bit, what you spoke about, Shireen, I've seen that in our golden who we was chosen for this specific role to play in our home, and yeah, she has exceptional temperament. My daughter can have meltdowns. She can get angry with her. So they're like siblings. She treats her like
Yeah,
a sibling. She'll fight with her. She'll get mad with her. So, of course, we're always watching. We ensure she doesn't hurt her or pull her tail or her fur. And my daughter is also that way, quite gentle, but she can have a meltdown. So she has the temperament to be able to take it in, and she also has the judgment that if it's getting too much, she just retreats into a safe space.
yeah,
But she
yeah.
knows this is not something I can handle, and she just
Correct.
backs off. So
Yeah,
she's not react. She's a very non-reactive dog. She'll just walk away. So the temperament bit, I mean, I can't say. I mean, that's probably one of the things.
yeah.
And then when spoken about temperament training again is so important. We've done a lot of extensive training with both our dogs. So we have a adopted lab also. We adopted her when she was close to a year. So she did have some temperament issues, not with our daughter, but with other dogs. But we've trained her and worked on it. She's come a long way now. But she's exceptional with our child. She's got a beautiful temperament with her. She manages her well. So the training aspect is it different from the regular behavior training for the
So
therapy
not
work?
the therapy dog work so much. Um,
Okay.
so really, if you're keeping a dog at home to do, any kind of work or be there as a companion for your child, you do need all the basic training in place. You
Hmm.
need all the socialization, the basic commands. So the dog is just well mannered, well behaved, and that's
Right.
about all. For that kind of work, you don't really need any specialized training unless you
Hmm.
want to include that to help the child build those certain skills. So
Okay.
but you don't really need any specialized training like you would for, say, a guide dog or an assist dog. That's a very high level of training. But for therapy
Right.
dogs that live in the same house, you just need I think basic control training, pet dog training is good.
So guide dog, when you say guide and assist, so a lot of people
Mm,
confuse. Even I have
yeah,
when I started off 5 6 years back, I didn't know the difference. So could you just tell us what is the difference
yeah.
between a
So a
therapy?
therapy dog, yeah. So a therapy dog is a dog that goes over maybe. So there are two kinds. There's animal assisted activities, animal assisted
Right.
therapy. But basically, this dog is just trained as a well mannered dog. It goes through a bit of temperament testing, aptitude testing skills to see whether it's got the aptitude or the personality to do this work and how willing it is to do that work. And it goes through all the basic control commands: a recall, a sit, a down, a stay, all of those things. It needs to have those in place. So these dogs visit schools, maybe old age homes, hospitals. You're visiting. It's a meet and greet, most likely. The dog is mine. I take it to a place. We make people happy. We interact with them. We engage with them. We can maybe in certain sessions build on certain skills. And at the end of the session, we come back. So I bring my dog home. It stays mine. With an
Hmm.
assisted dog, it's a dog trained to work and partner with a person maybe who is physically challenged. So
Hmm.
assist dogs work with physically challenged. So it could be maybe someone in a wheelchair. That dog is trained to do special training for that person. So the dog can pick up things from the ground, fetch a remote control, cover you with a blanket, put on a light switch, open a door, open a drawer, pick up. So we have one in our country. There's Karan and Angel. They're a working dog team. Angel is his dog. It's not my dog I've gone and helped him with. We train her and she stays with him. So an assist dog belongs to the person that it works for. A therapy dog is, say, my dog goes to a session and comes back home to me. I don't leave that dog at that facility as such. So there's a slight difference in the two. Assist dogs also need very high levels of training because their day-to-day job is to make the life easier for that person. A therapy dog can still do the work without that high level of training.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So, Shreya, I'm just going to post comments, which, if it is pertaining to the topic we're discussing temperament a little while ago. So, how is the temperament testing done? Can you throw more light on this? Is one question.
So we do. There's a bit of extensive testing. So in a nutshell, it's quite a long process. So we do have therapy dog courses, which Tanmayi has done. So she knows what the whole testing process is. So we test a couple of things for the dog, and you need a third person, a certified assessor doing this. You can't just have family relative doing this test for you. It doesn't work that way. So a certified assessor comes. The testing process involves a team. So supposing I want to get tested with my dog, if at all we pass as a team. That means only I'm qualified to take that dog to do the work. A third person cannot just come and take my dog and start the work. It should not be technically that way that it's done. So you get tested on the skills of the dog and the handler. And then we also look at the aptitude, which would be roughly saying the temperament or the personality or the aptitude of the dog to doing it. So some of the tests would include seeing a basic sit, a down, stuff like that, a recall. So the control that the handler would have generally over the dog. And then we would do aptitude tests, which are basically tests that simulate a situation that a therapy dog would be put into. So some of them would include maybe clumsy handling. Some would include people shouting. Some would include maybe a loud noise. Some would include seeing how the handler handles a situation of maybe confusion. So these would be tests that would be around a simulated situation, what you and your therapy dog would be put into when you actually go for a session. And what is very important, most people think we're just testing the dog. It's not. In my opinion, when I'm testing someone, it's 60% the handler, and I would say 40% because I want to see what the handler does. For example, if you're doing a test of loud noise, somebody maybe throws something, maybe a vessel clanging behind the dog. What I want to see when the vessel clangs and the dog goes, "Oh, what was that?" So one, I want to see the dog's reaction. I want to see dog recovery time. To see, did the dog panic? Did the dog just have a small thing? Did he recover quickly from that? Second important thing is what the handler is doing. Is the handler at that time trying to help the dog recover faster? Is the handler comforting the dog? Is the handler being a part of that? Because if the handler is just standing and watching, the handler gets very low. So, when you see the testing papers, there's a paper for the handler and there's a testing score sheet for the dog. Both get scored. So even human and the dog both get scored at the same time. So in a nutshell, that's really what your testing process would be. And we have different scores. So if your dog's aggressive, if your dog's fearful, you just get a failed mark. Then you could have maybe something called as a not ready, where you are kind of there but not there, and you need to work. So that the assessor or the examiner will tell you where you need to work, what fields need to be better, improved on. You can go away, practice that, come back for another test.
Right. So the testing is intensive, so to speak.
In a way, and it's important because when a therapy dog goes out there to do work, he's an ambassador for all the other dogs. So one therapy dog that doesn't do good work can spoil the reputation of everybody else. And it can then create panic or fear in a person which was not needed, right? The whole purpose was to create joy, to create happiness, to create peace, calm, whatever your aim was. And if a dog is unhappy or bites, God forbid, that's a really bad thing for, to happen.
Yes, totally understand that. Yeah, and I remember even during the course, there's something which you said, which kind of stayed in my mind. Is you mentioned that a therapy dog not should not just enjoy the work, but should thrive in it.
Eyes on
And
it.
could you just
Yeah.
tell us a little bit between the subtle difference between the two?
So this is where everybody gets it wrong. Everybody even joins a course thinking, "How my dog's friendly. I think this
Yes.
is really good. My good deed for the day can be ticked off," kind of a thing. And I'd like to make people happy. So when you really hear this, and a lot of
Yeah.
you listening to me might be able to identify, because when people say, "I have a friendly dog. I want to go to an old age home and bring joy. I want to go to kids who, homes and maybe work with orphans. I want to take my dog. I want to do this with my, it's all I. And I say, stop right there. Ask the
Mm.
dog, because a lot of dogs that I see
Mm.
tolerate his work. So
Right.
you could have a dog that's predisposed to just being a good tempered dog. It doesn't
Mm.
necessarily mean he might enjoy this. There is a
Mm.
difference in a dog that enjoys and actively seeks this and thrives on this, and a dog that says, "Okay, well, we'll do this if you want me to. I'm not enjoying myself." Can you still do therapy dog work with that kind of dog? Sure. But what we typically see and what we are worried about is spillover effects, right? Anything you do, we're constantly looking at the dog. And
Right.
what's important is even a dog that enjoys this and thrives is going to take on some of the stress in that session. A
Mm.
dog that tolerates will take
Mm.
on that stress, that unhappiness of the whole situation a lot faster. And then what we see is the dog falling sick, skin problems, ear infections. Suddenly your dog is digestive. Yeah. And then they wonder, where did that come from? So
Mm.
what I always ask people is really ask yourself a hard question. Whether your dog, if you asked your dog, "Hey, would you like to do this?" What's the
Mm.
dog going to say? And one of the ways we get the answer is going through that testing process. Because I'll tell you one thing, most dogs, I would say, don't like being hugged. A therapy dog is going to be hugged, is going to be, you cannot take that away, because, it's such a human thing. Kids will come and hug, people will hug. It's something even as
Mm.
small as that. If your dog doesn't like being hugged, maybe think twice which sessions you want to do with your dog.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of questions asking about the age of the dog.
That's a
What is
good
the
question.
age?
Yeah, there is an age limit. You should not ideally do therapy dog till your dog's at least 1 year old. Your
Okay.
dog needs that little bit of mental maturity to handle this. Puppies definitely should not be doing this work as like concentrated. They can't take on that stress.
Hmm.
Mentally, they don't have the maturity. Physically, they don't.
Right. Right.
So wait till your dog is 1 year old to start any kind of this work, because it takes a bit of pressure on the dog for the dog to be able to handle it. And if a
Hmm.
dog's young, a teenager or a puppy, he may not physically and mentally be able to take that. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have to take a time out for your dog, let him heal. The whole purpose is lost, right? Because if you have to give to somebody and your cup's not full, you can't do that. So we always say, right, in this world, if you are going through a situation, I always tell my therapy dog people, never do the session, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You're
Right.
gonna, and I'll tell you this, you give as much joy as we bring. There is always that end of the day, evening, I tell people, take some time off, because you'd see typically a bit of you gets depleted, a bit of the dog gets depleted, and you need to be able to fill that up again before you move to another session. What is
Hmm.
the age limit? There is none. I would always watch the dog to see. I've seen 12-year-old dogs doing this. So I
Okay.
always watch. When the day comes when I see that the dog saying, "Oh, do I really need to do this anymore?" That can come at any age, 6 years, 7 years, 12 years. It doesn't, I don't see it as age. Or your dog's physically not able to take on the thing, maybe because he could be even something like pain. I've
Hmm.
seen sometimes dogs have arthritis, And
Yes.
that kind of takes away their patience level for this work. So
Right.
just see your dog, you know your dog best. If you see that he's reached a point where he's saying, I don't think I want to do this anymore, that's the day you'd retire your dog.
Got it. Got it. Yes. So many things to keep in mind. This is amazing. Thank you so much. Okay. What I also wanted to ask you about is um, apart from dogs, have you seen other animals being used in therapy? And I've seen some videos of it happening abroad, but I don't know in India if there are other animals being used in therapy work.
So I do know of horses that do it.
Yeah.
So there are horses. There is a Japaloop, a riding center at Talegaon, just outside of Bombay, and Rohan More there does do lovely therapy sessions, and they're beautiful. Some of the responses we've heard from family, friends, or people who've gone there, lovely. So maybe a horse. Horses can be lovely creatures to work with as well.
Hmm.
At one point on our farm, we had horses, and we didn't have intentional therapy sessions, but we've had like school kids visit, or people in a wheelchair come over, and they've always spent a lot of quiet time with one of my horses that I had there, Noor. She was a very sweet horse, excellent in temperament, and I think just intuitively she knew when people needed her, kind of. So she
Hmm.
was lovely, and I'd always seen her with a lot of people. If I was having a bad day, I'd just go stand and talk to her. And she
Hmm.
always had the patience to stand, she'd listen. She was sweet. So, horse is great. I've not really seen many other animals. Maybe it does happen. I don't know of it in our country.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but I've seen abroad, dolphins to cats, even
Yes.
pigs and snakes and
Pigs and
iguanas.
dolphins. Yeah.
Um, so I've seen a lot of people do it with different animals. So yeah,
Okay.
I think in our country it needs to be developed. More people need to get into it. Needs to be more of an organized sector.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Okay. So, what would be the best way to pair a child to a therapy animal? What would be the best way to go about it? Because each child with special needs is different.
Yeah,
Each dog will be different. So, what would be the best way to
totally.
pair?
So this is a dog you're bringing home as a companion for the child, right? You're
Yes.
talking about that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So first step is I would see what the needs are for the child. What are you bringing home a dog for? So, for example, you could say my child's fine motor skills need to be developed. Okay, so
Yeah.
you could see what that is, and based on that, maybe choose a dog. Remember, temperament is something that we cannot ever overlook. So, temperament is definitely there. And then you might also want to see maybe if the child has a particular like. Sometimes,
Mm.
as children, we've all grown up seeing a certain movie, it stays in your mind. So I've had a lot of people who say, I got a Dalmatian because my kids saw 101 Dalmatians. From that day, they're
Yeah.
fixed. So
Yeah.
while I get all of that, we have to look at the breed to an extent because, breeds also based on their breed might need certain amount of exercise.
Mm.
So you look at exercise, you look at the temperament, and then you look at, of course, the adaptability.
Okay.
Certain breeds might have the patience for that work, some may
Mm.
not. So
Mm.
why my constant thing is why force a dog to doing this? Sometimes I've seen dogs that are not happy living in homes where they're brought for this purpose, but they don't want to do it. So
Okay.
then it becomes kind of a situation where you're pushing a square peg into a round hole.
Mm.
Um, it might fit at some point, but it's got to be kind of, forced.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would
So
always
the
say look for that.
interaction is important. You're saying when they have to interact with each other and get to know each other a
So
bit.
that's one of the things that helps then is bringing home like a younger dog because the
Right.
younger it is, the more malleable you can adapt it.
Yeah.
It grows up with the child, they grow up together. So the dog gets used to the child at a young age. I've always seen that helps build the relationship.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Yes. So while we're talking a little bit about the interaction between the child and the dog, Mira is asking, can you put some light on therapy dog socialization with other dogs? Will such a dog-to-dog interaction affect on the dog's behavior patterns?
Okay, so with a therapy dog, the purpose you brought the dog home is to play with the child and the human beings. Just a quick digression to understand a bit on socialization. Dog to dog socialization typically should take place from about the age of, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks till about the age of 10 to 12 weeks. That's the critical period where your dog benefits from interactions with other dogs. It learns a lot. It learns how to play nicely. It might learn things like bite inhibition. It learns good manners. It learns body language. It learns all of that. How to build on all those skills, it learns that. After about that age, really, the dog should concentrate on speaking the language of the species it should live with. So I would focus, especially if it's a therapy dog, I'd focus more on it being socialized with the human race, because eventually that's the aim of bringing home the dog, right? It should spend more time with the humans, speak their language, learn all of that. It no longer really needs to play with other dogs for any learning benefit as such whatsoever. So allowing your dog to spend a lot of time with other dogs will slow down the process of it learning to play with you, bond with you, be your best friend. Which is, I think, if you're bringing home a dog for assist dog or therapy dog purposes, too much of dog to dog play might defeat that very purpose. And it just prolong the whole aspect of the human and dog relationship becoming stronger.
Okay, interesting. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, Shane, we've talked a little bit about the prerequisites. What would you say would be the top do's and don'ts for a family who's looking to get a dog home or has got a dog home? In your experience, have you seen like the top mistakes that have happened and the top best practices that you would like to share here? Which is
So
what?
this, I would say, spans across it, whether you're bringing the dog home to do therapy work or not. First step is make sure you are ready for a dog. It can't be, I'm bored, there's a lockdown, let's go get a dog home. Or my child's been pestering. I can't handle the pestering anymore. Let's go bring the dog home because the child wants it. Just to clarify to all parents here, especially the moms, okay? You bring a dog home for your child, go ahead. But keep in mind, all the work is going to fall on you. If you're not ready, if your life is not ready for this, think about it. As much as your child, and I'll tell you this, whatever age they are, 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, 16 years, it doesn't matter. Okay, they'll say they'll commit to the dog. Mama, I'll walk the dog. I'll play with the dog. I'll do this. I'll brush. At the end of the day, the novelty wears off at some point for the children. And that whole responsibility somebody has to take responsibility. You can't just have the child. And please don't give it to anything, I would say, under 12 years as a responsibility. You know, I've had people say, I have a 6-year-old child and he said he'll take care of the dog. God, a 6-year-old child cannot take care of himself. How can you expect that he'll remember to feed? A dog has basic needs. They need to be fed, they need to be walked, they need to be cared for, they need their health to be looked at. My question is, who's going to do all that? And typically in our Indian homes, it falls on the mother. So make sure, and I typically tell them that, I know you're doing this for your child, you're going to bring joy to your child, definitely. But keep in mind, you're going to have to do all of that. Are you ready for that? If they say, no, I have a job, I travel a lot, I say, then who's going to be the caregiver for the dog? It cannot be some aged grandparent. It cannot be a young child. There has to be somebody who's an adult with maturity who can do that. So I'd say the first thing to keep in mind is, remember it's a responsibility. Remember, a dog, like a child, needs a lot of care, a lot of your time, your energy, and without that, then don't just bring a dog home. I would then just suggest bring a friend's dog home, play with it, enjoy it, give it back to the friend, or bring home somebody else's dog where you can enjoy, your child can play, but then you are not taking on that responsibility.
Okay, wonderful. And is there any reason that in your experience you have like told a family or a setup that, sorry, please don't get a
Oh,
dog.
many times, huge number of times, and I say you should not be getting home a dog. Get home a stuffed toy. Okay.
My
And this is
father's done that
for
for
therapy
us.
things. Yeah, it's not just for therapy. For therapy dog work, especially if you're bringing home a dog, please make sure the caregivers of the child are ready to take on the burden.
Mm,
I'll give you an example. There was this dog we were training. It was a Labrador.
mm,
The mother and father both had to hold down jobs because they had two, three kids. So they had to, of course, support. And then there was a special needs child in the house. He was also physically a challenge, so he was in a wheelchair. And they had to do work and handle all of this. And then they one day went and got a doggo. Um, saying it'll help. And, they contacted me for training, and I said, great, we'll train, we'll start. And every training, I would say out of 10 sessions, if we'd had, 8 used to get cancelled because she would
mm.
typically say something like, oh, what are we doing? Can I cancel? My driver didn't come today. So it's a lot of sudden
Yeah,
burden. And I could see that she was getting burnt out, the mom. And many times I would actually go out of my way to say, listen, don't worry. You just manage the kids. We'll work with the dog later. So I could see it was too much. Think about it. It should, when you bring home the dog, there should be joy in the house. The family should be completed. It shouldn't be a situation where you're totally laid out on the washing line, wrung out from the stress of saying, oh, now the dog's puked, now I have to clean up that maybe. And my child has to go for physiotherapy sessions. When do I schedule this? It's not fair then. So
yeah,
think about it. Never bring home a dog without thought.
right. So you have said no to families. Have
So
you
many
used
people. And then you know what they do typically, Tanmay? They go and get a dog.
anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what benefits have you seen in children, in special needs children?
Oh my God, they're amazing benefits. There should
Okay.
be any home that's not got a dog with special needs, and constantly you hear about it, or they'll message me, or they'll WhatsApp me, and they say, "Today we had a little moment of sunshine, or a little miracle, or today my daughter was run down a bit. Somebody said something to her in school, um, and she came home, and the dog and she went under the bed." And half an hour later, when she came out, she was smiling, or she had. I can't tell you sometimes about the little miracles, as such I would call them, or the magic I would call them, that happens when you're around a dog. We've seen it as adults, um,
Yes.
but with little children, and especially kids, I see relate to dogs as peers far better than they can relate to human beings. I've
Mhm.
seen it in my own house. My daughter, she's not necessarily a special needs child or anything, but just as a normal kid, she would have meltdowns, she'd have a tantrum or whatever. And at that time, she doesn't want mom, she wants the dog at home. So typically, dog is taken in the room, door is locked, mother is outside wondering where she's gone wrong as a mom. And she'll hold the dog, they'll hug each other, they'll take that moment together. She can talk to the dog. And typically, if I'm listening in, it'll be like, "Mom's so bad. Mom is this. Mom's that." And of course, the dog never contradicts her. Listens.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they kind of, she'll spend, or she'll lie on the dog, and the dog, takes all that. Dogs just take it, right? They just take it from
Yes.
us.
They do.
I so much.
Yeah, and also about the caregivers. I personally been caregiving for my child for a decade, and I know how much it has run me down.
Yeah.
And just having a therapy dog at home has just repaired me so much. So it's not talked about a lot. Apart from the work that is involved, there's definitely that therapeutic angle. Even the caregivers get by
Absolutely.
having a dog at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that should be the fine balance that comes out. you should benefit from having that dog at home.
Yes, despite all the work.
Yeah, despite all the burnout, everything, at the end of the day, when you sit down and you think, you have to say, yeah, I think it was a good decision bringing that dog home.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, Shireen. So this is a question I've been itching to ask you. What would you say has been your most memorable moment? You can talk about more than one, but in the therapy work that you have done, something that just stands out for you.
Yeah, so there is definitely one that I always talk about, because it's something I think it'll stay with me and I'll remember it through a lifetime of everything. There's this lady, and she lost her daughter to cancer when the daughter was about just 10 years old. And it had been quite a battle. And I got a call, I think, from her brother in law, or it was an email, where he reached out and he said, listen, in a nutshell, this is what's happened. But we know that she's always loved dogs, and we think during her time of grief, maybe doing something with dogs would help. So I said, exactly what do you mean by doing something? Because, it kind of was like a general statement. So he said, I don't know. What do you think? I said, I don't know till I've met her, maybe talk to her, see what we can do. And then I can maybe guide her in a direction of what, we can do with her. So she came over to my place to meet me. Sorry, at that point, I had a lovely dog called Sarah. She was also a qualified therapy dog. And this lady comes, she sits across from me on the sofa. I don't know her. I was a mother already at that time, so I already felt her pain. Um, it's just a mother pain, right? I mean, the worst thing any mother, the one thing we go to sleep every night wondering about is the loss of a child, right? I mean, that's our worst nightmares, any mother would say, come true. And she sat across from me, and she was talking to me, and she I was so scared of taking the topic down that road, because I said maybe it's too sore or sensitive, but she spoke about it. And as she spoke about her daughter, and honestly, the most beautiful little girl in the world she was, when I saw the pictures, she spoke. There was not a tear in her eye, Tanmayi, and I was having a hard time keeping my tears out, because I just got so overwhelmed with the sadness of something like that. And she's talking, and I'm going like, trying not to cry in front of her, because how rude would that be? And I'm like blinking and all. And Sarah came, and of course she loves dogs, so she sat. And Sarah just sat. So she was sitting with her side. So Sarah sat touching her entire side of her body to that lady's side. She leaned on her, and all she did was she patted the dog from the head all the way down to the tail, and just long stroke. And she talked, and she just did that, and she did that, and she did that. And Sarah typically is not the kind to sit and sit and sit. After a while, she kind of says, okay, I need to go do my thing. But she sat next to this woman for 2 hours without moving a muscle. She just sensed that she needed her. And this lady did. I think, being a stranger, she could not relate to me. There were times I just wanted to reach out and maybe hug her. You feel that even though it's a stranger. And I did not, because I said maybe she won't, she doesn't know me, she won't like that, all of that. But what she could do is she could hug the dog. She patted the dog for the 2 hours that we just chatted. But I really feel the dog took away a lot of the sadness that was there in that moment for her. Maybe helped her speak a little bit more. I would have loved to have had the dog at my side at that time, because I was so emotionally distraught listening to all that. And when she left, the whole time she was there, I mean, it had been 2 weeks that her daughter had passed away. I would, if something like that happened to me, I'd have been like a breakdown. But she had just, I don't know, maybe kept it in. She was in shutdown. I don't know. But the dog helped her in that little bit of 2 hours. We had not planned for it, nothing. But that dog helped her. I didn't tell the dog to do this. Sometimes I see that these dogs intuitively come up, sit with that person. You'll see it at home, maybe your kid's having a meltdown, and you'll see the dog's doing something else. She'll say, I think I'm needed here. And the way I work, it's all behavior. We work in the science of behavior. But I honestly tell my students sometimes some of these things that happen, I don't think maybe science has the answers. They're at a level of what I'd say maybe a little bit of magic dust sprinkled in
Yes.
that situation. I didn't train the dog. How did the dog know? This dog's never done this before. How do they know that this person needs them? They're going through grief and they need them at that time to help them through it. So I've had a couple of situations like that where even my current dog Maya, she's done that with a young child who had been traumatized. And she went and for about 2 hours, she just put her head in his lap and she sat there. I mean,
Wow.
I've not seen her do that with me beyond a period of time. Um, and I looked at her and I said, how do you know there are other kids in this room? How do you know he needed you?
Yes.
And there's,
Yes.
so much else when I have, say, courses and students come. If I see Maya going to a certain student and just hanging around that person, typically when there's a break, I'll go up and ask the person, hey, are you having a bad day today? And they look at me, and I've never been wrong. They typically say, how do you know? I say, Maya
Mm.
told me. If she spends a little extra time with you, she sensed that you're not okay today, something
Yeah.
about you is amiss, and she picks up, and I read her and I go over and ask them if they need a break or something. But she's also a very intuitive dog.
I just have goosebumps listening to the Shirin. I mean, amazing and just awesome. There is, of course, we know the magic, we've experienced it,
Yeah,
but awareness about this topic is really low in our country. I mean, even when we started, we just kind of knew just one therapist, and we heard about it through someone, and so we thankfully we were guided in the right way. But I get a lot of questions from parents. They don't know where to start and how to go about it. So, how can we improve the reach of animal assisted therapy in India? I mean,
so
there are a lot of programs
definitely,
abroad.
yeah, we do need to do this. So we are forming a small organization of our own trainers. So a lot, I do a therapy dog course. I'm also converting it into a completely pre-recorded course, so people can just, like how you do courses on Udemy or wherever, you can do that entire course, learn about it, and then there are a lot of certified assessors out there. Go get your dog certified, and maybe we're making a bigger group of certified assessors who can then, take this forward in a more organized manner. But I think this whole lockdown thing has slowed it
Yeah.
all,
Yes.
unfortunately.
I think Malvika has asked a question: why is there such a low acceptance in India about service dogs, therapy dogs? Although things are definitely improving, it's still far away.
Yeah,
So, just before you answer this question, Shane, I've seen that in my experience when I work with children with special needs. Many of them come home for sessions, and of course, this was pre-lockdown. But when they get to know, the children get to know that there are dogs in the house, their eyes light up. They're very
yeah,
curious. They want to see them, but the parents are petrified. And more often than not, you can see they are not willing to step into the house till they are assured the dogs are kept away. But I know when I'm as a therapist, when I'm looking at the child and I see the eyes light up, I know that they will benefit
yeah,
by some interaction with a
correct.
dog, with a trained dog, of course.
Yeah.
So when we break that barrier, there is a lot of fear around dogs in general. So
So I think you've done the first step by doing something like this, a live session where we talk about it, because the
yes,
only way you'll break the barrier is education.
yes,
Every time we go to a school with a dog and do a session, every time you go to an old age home, every time you go anywhere with a dog and do a session, you're creating that education, you're creating that awareness, you're spreading the word that this exists. But unfortunately, the number of people doing it is drop in the ocean as such. We need more people, we need more education, whether it's even something like this on social media, a talk like this. I'm sure there's one person out there who didn't know about this and might
yeah,
learn about it. So even if we've educated that one person, we've done a bit of our job. So I think the people who do know about it should go out. Every time one of my students messages and she says, "Hey, I got a call from this school. What do I do?" I say, go, just go. You've got to go. Don't turn down sessions, because as it is, not many schools or anything are open to the thought. You need a very dog-friendly principal or a parent who can get that facilitated. But we shouldn't be turning down these things, because when these opportunities come, they're like really few and far between. So the more we do, the more we educate, the more we spread the word. Maybe setting up a group, which we should do. So if anybody's interested, get back to us as such. We, can form a little group of educated people doing this in an ethical manner. I think then that can help. And I think now with this whole lockdown and people going through depression, therapy dogs are needed more than ever.
Yes. I can see that in the children in our building. They're just more eager to meet our dogs when we take them for walks. They're like so happy after they have an interaction with them. You can see the change instantly. So there is a question. What are the recognized institutions, since we're talking about the spread, that you would recommend to train a therapy dog?
So the training process, I would say you don't really need a therapy dog organization for that. Get a good trainer who understands what therapy dog training is, and they can help you with everything, your normal companion dog training, and they can throw in a bit of the therapy dog work as well. To get certified, you need a good therapy dog organization. There are different ones. I don't know how their methods work, so I don't really approve. So the only one we approve of is our own. I know it sounds narcissistic to say that, but sorry about that. But, because I do believe it needs to be done ethically, and the certification needs to be a little tough to ensure that. So I would say there are lots of our certified assessors around the country. They do it independently. So when people call, I refer them and they get in touch with the person independently. Right now, that's how it's working. But we are working on a process where it would be done through a proper organization. So there's some sort of accountability that needs to be at the end.
Yes, absolutely. Because what you said is right. It has to be done ethically and in the right, proper manner, so that there are no mistakes. Like you said, even one single mistake can mar the whole reputation
of everybody else.
Yes,
so that way we have a responsibility towards all the other dogs out there doing this work.
So Manjari has said, very insightful discussion. Thank you for the effort in covering so many facets of this modality. More power to your work. Thank you, Manjari. Shirin, we'll just wrap this discussion. I know your time is highly valued, and I'm really honored that you've spent so much time with us discussing this. Some last words.
Thank you for this.
Some last words before we end this really special discussion. What would you like to say?
So, to everybody listening out there, get into it. If you've got a dog and you think you'd like to do it, maybe reach out to Tanmayi. She'll guide you on the process of how to do it, but start doing it. Even if you've just got a friendly dog and you think it's predisposed, start with whatever you've got. Maybe the kids in the building, in your society. Maybe there's somebody aged living next to you who could use a session to cheer them up. Work in this field. Start going out there, start doing it. You don't need a degree in rocket science to do therapy dog work. You just need a dog that's happy to do the work. You have to have the good predisposition to doing the work, and start. Spread the word. So Tanmay has taken the first step in making sure this live session happens. And I'm sure for a lot of you, it answered some questions or cleared a few doubts or created thought processes that weren't there to begin with. So it's a very good step. Do animals do great therapy dog work? The absolute resounding answer is yes. I've never had a session in 25 years where I've come back saying, hey, it didn't work out today. It's always, we've left behind what we call as a little bit of magic when we've done that session. There's always been smiles. There's always been joy. It's lovely to do this work. So get out there, connect with somebody who can guide you on this, and start.
Thank you so much, Shirin. Really, really happy that we were able to do this. And like you said, if you've been successful in starting just a small thread of discussion or a thought process in this field, and people come forward and at least inquire, get to know more, that's just just the
Yeah.
first step ahead. And
That seed. Plant a seed.
yeah,
Let it grow, but
absolutely.
plant it.
Yeah, that was the whole thought behind doing this,
Super.
and also for us to know which direction to go so that we don't make silly mistakes in this, and if they can be avoided if you're educated and you know which way to
Right.
go. Thank you so much. This has been
Thank you for having
wonderful
this
session.
session and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone,
guys.
for
Thank you
joining in.
all. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.